Right. So the other day we have looked into the application versioning. Right. So you generally look after versioning your application when you are going to get your application to a release. Right. I mean, the release might be a minor one, a major one, or for a patch one, whatever it might be. We would all look at versioning the application so that the existing behavior of the application shouldn't get affected. Right. So whatever changes you might bring in, it could be new enhancements, new features, or it could be for your bugs, the fixes that you have done, the defects that you have corrected, whatever it might be, we bring it as an additional layer as a new version for the application, right? So versioning your application means versioning your rule sets indirectly. Right, because we don't have anything as code here, we call everything as rules. So we try to increment the version of the rules in a new rule set. Right? So on this context, we have seen two different ways in which you can version your application. So what are those? One is a lock and roll mechanism. The other is going to be the skimming process. Two approaches are there, lock and roll and skimming. How do you choose from among these approaches is depending upon the type of release that you're planning. Right? So lock and roll works best for minor and patch increments, whereas skimming is best suitable when you're migrating across multiple major versions. Right? So you entirely need a new major version. You can go for the skim. Right? So in the lock and roll, again, we have got three different approaches depending upon the requirement. The first one is do not update your application. Okay, where only on the rule set level you get to see the new version, but on the entire application level definition, it still holds the same. Right, so you don't get to see any difference on the application definition, but the rule set, yes, it is incremented. Okay, whereas the second option is update the application to include your new rule set versions. This time, along with the rule set, you're also updating the application. Okay. Whereas the third option is create a new version of my application. This creates an entirely new copy of your application, right? So along with your rule set increment, you also get to see another instance of the application available. Okay. And at this context, we should make sure that the appropriate access groups are correctly pointed to the designated developers. Right? So you might want only a few developers from your team to access the new version, whereas rest all should still continue working on the older version. We should make sure the access groups are pointed correctly with the appropriate versions. Because for my application now, I can have more versions now. Multiple available versions are possible. So a bit of care to be taken on the access groups level, because we can decide who should access what version of the application. Okay. So with lock and roll, again, like I said, it's a separate wizard that completes versioning process. So you can select what all you would like to lock and what all you would like to roll. Always a good practice to lock your current version before rolling out. Okay. And then the second approach for skimming is where you entirely try to eliminate the unnecessary copies of the rules, right? So leaving behind all the impure, unnecessary copies of the rules are left behind, taking ahead only a single instance, a single copy of each rule into the next major or minor highest version. Right? So you get to have only one copy of each rule once you start your process of skimming. Right. So this is really helpful when you're dealing with huge enterprise applications when you have multiple versions and a lot of things available. So if you want to remove all that junk and all, so it's better we try to use the skimming process here, so that it holds like a fresh base copy. You will have only one copy of each rule, which is as similar to your very first version of O1, O1, O. Like that, you will have all the rule instances with just one copy. Right? So I think that's about the skimming. Again, skimming also comes as part of a wizard, right? So these things are not just you click on it, it works. No, they are part of a process. They are part of a wizard, right? Which we tend to do on an occasional basis or a periodic basis, depending upon the releases that you have planned. So I think, yes, that's all about versioning. So any questions on this? Are we good with versioning? Okay.
For now, I have understood, but after I practice, if I get any questions, I'll ask you.
Sure. Okay, sure. Yeah. All right. So I think then we'll go ahead. So today also, we'll be talking about, or we'll be focusing more on the rule sets. Right? We'll talk about some design aspects that we have to keep in mind when you're building an application. Right? So we will be talking about some rule sets, something called as validation of the rule sets. Okay, we'll talk about some check-ins and checkouts. So it's all about managing or designing better applications. Okay? Yeah. So CSA is all about just understanding the requirement and then just building a logic for it using your data transforms or so-called decision rules or activities, whatever. So you try to fulfill the requirement. Whereas CSSA is all about building better applications. How well can you build better applications? How well can you reuse some stuff? Or how well you can design something so that it is more feasible or it is more maintainable. So you start thinking in deeper aspects when it comes to the CSSA. Right? So one such aspect we are going to discuss today is about these rule sets, the types of validations that we are going to have. Right. So when we initially start creating the application, okay, through the wizard or through your new application creation wizard, so a lot of things are already created in the backend. I mean, the system is taking the responsibility of creating all of these. Right? Be it your access groups are created, then some work queues are created, work groups are created, organizational rules are created, division rules are created, specific rule sets are created. Yes, access roles are created. So the system is taking the responsibility of creating all of these for you. Earlier, when we didn't have this wizard, when back in like 7.1 or before, we did not have this wizard. It's like everything has to be manually created by ourselves and then we can create the application. That's how it used to be. Okay. Now, as part of this system creating some stuff for us, one of which is going to be your rule sets. Okay. So 4 rule sets are created when you create the application itself. So remember, what are those rule sets? I think we also did see them, right?
Yeah, the application rule set, application integration, then organization and organization integration.
Right. Perfect. So 4 rule sets are created by default for us by the system. Right. So let us just have a look at them first. So let's log in. So typically they are your application rule set, application int rule set, organization rule set, and organization int rule set. 4 rule sets are created. Good. Now, should I just confine my whole application with those 4 rule sets only? Or can I create my own rule sets also?
We can create our own rule sets.
Exactly. So yes, we can go ahead, create our own rule sets depending on the requirement. So it might be like for a particular requirement or for a particular enhancement, I will create a separate rule set. Or for a particular feature, I can create a separate rule set. Or for each developer on my team, they can be part of a separate rule set. Or for each sprint that I'm working on could go in a particular rule set. So depending upon the kind of approach that your team or that your project is following, you can create n number of rule sets as per the requirement. Good. Yes, I can create some rule sets of my own. Fine. And as we know, what does your rule set consist of? It is going to be a list of or a set of rules from which the system is going to pick the rules as and when it is going to execute them. Right? Rule set is a set of rules, as simple as it. Right? Now, yes. So this is what we call as the application rule sets, which are part of your application. Then you'll have some organization related ones, and then whatever applications you might want to create for your application. Yes, all those listed in the application rule sets, we call them as a rule set stack. Okay, we call it in the order of a stack because this order is what determines the priority. So which rule set should be given priority here? So the top priority always goes for your application rule set, right? Because that's where most of your rules would reside. So if the system is not able to find some rules there, then it goes to the second one. So here initially your HR apps is going to be the top of your stack. So once the rule is not available there, it is popped out. So next, what becomes top of your stack? It is going to be your HR apps int. System again checks for the rules in that particular rule set. If found, well and good. If not, this is also popped out. So likewise, we take it in the form of a stack so that priority always is given to your top of your stack. Right. So we are talking about these rule sets, right? The application rule sets, then your organization rule sets, and this is how you will try to prioritize them depending upon the stack, right? So the order in which you define your stack defines the way for the Pega application to understand which rules have to be given priority. Okay? So the one that's on the top of the stack is given the priority, and that's how it would continue. Right? Now, along with these application rule sets, we also have something called as production rule sets. Right? So there is a bit of a difference between the application one. So what is that now? And where do I see them?